In this lesson, I get to learn about algebraic phrases and decimal parts of a number. Algebraic phrases, that's ridiculous because I can barely do English phrases. I'm a pumpkin. Seriously, I don't want to be taking algebra. If I were a human, it would be fun, but this is kind of a joke.
This is going to be translating English to algebra, okay, or math, whichever we want to call it. So what we're going to do right away is we're looking for, all of these are talking about a number, okay, a number. So in order to do that, let's just say let n equal the number, okay? And we're going to use this variable for all of these statements. I'm going to do two with you, and then I want you to try and figure out the phrase, the expression for the rest, okay? So obviously we're going to start nice and easy. The sum of a number and 7. So yes, we do need to know those definitions. What does sum mean? Well, it means adding. So the sum of a number and 7 would be n plus 7. Or you could have had n or 7 plus n. So that would be this whole statement shortened up into an algebraic statement. 7 less than a number. It's very tempting to do 7 minus n, but it's 7 less than the number, so it's less than the number, so the number was bigger. So we're taking away from the number is what we're saying there. Now what we need to know before you finish this on your own is opposite means negative. And I see opposite happening. Product I see later. Make sure you know product means multiply. Sometimes some of these are going to need parentheses, so we will, down here it might be a little tricky. So I want to challenge you to do these. Definitely turn this off. Challenge you to figure out what you think these would all be, and then we'll come back and do them together. So ready? And pause. Okay, now I'm assuming, since you're unpaused me, that you've done these yourself and you're going to check and see how we did. Okay, the opposite of a number decreased by 5. So the opposite of a number would be negative n, negative that number. Does it mean that number is going to be negative? No, because what if the number itself was negative? If it was like negative 6, well, the opposite of negative 6 would turn this into a positive 6. It would be negative, negative. That might not have meant anything to you, but a couple of you might have caught what I just said. All right, the opposite of a number decreased by 5. That's what we would have. The sum of the opposite of a number and negative 5. The sum of the opposite of a number and negative 5. Or you could have had plus negative 5. They both, but you were kind of getting overdoing the two operations. It's the same thing. The product of twice a number and 8. The product of twice a number and 8. So you could have done 2n times 8. Or the book had 8 times 2n. Same thing. The product means we're multiplying twice a number times 8. These are both good. The sum of twice a number and negative 5. The sum of twice a number and negative 5 would look like that. Now we're going to deal with parentheses. 5 times the sum of twice a number and negative 5. So 5 times, and then it's going to be like this. 5 times what they discuss in here. So 5 times the sum of twice a number and negative 5 would look like that. Okay, this one might be a little more complicated. 6 times the sum of... Okay, so we're going to put that in parentheses. So 6 times the sum of twice the opposite of a number and 8. So sum of twice the opposite of a number. So sum of twice the opposite of a number would be 2 times negative that number, twice the opposite of a number, and 8. So it would look like that, or maybe even brackets. The product of 7 and the sum of a number and 10. So it's product of 7 and the sum of a number and 10. So it would be 7 and plus 10. So yeah, you've got to be very careful on where the pause is, what's getting grouped. This is a quantity, we call that. The sum of 3 times a number and -4 multiplied by 5. So 3 times a number and -4 multiplied by 5. So you could put the 5 out here, or you could put the 5 here. The sum of -10 and 6 times the opposite of a number. The sum of -10 and 6 times the opposite of a number would be this. And -10. Now, completely switching gears, we're going to do kind of what we did in the past. Now we're just using decimals, because now we did algebraic phrases, now we're doing decimals. This is a lot like what we did before, where it was fractional parts of a number. Now we're doing decimals. So we do the same thing. We translate into an equation and solve. So we would do 0.32 n, because that means times n, equals 24 times 0.32. Now we can go ahead and divide this because we are dealing with decimals. So we're going to stay in decimals. So we're going to not be afraid to do a division problem. Oh, how do we know that? Because we divide both sides by 0.32. Now we don't divide by a decimal. We've got to move that decimal over. So it's right there, and we move that over there. And we could have done this like we did before, multiply both sides by 100, which is actually what I would have done. But I was doing it the way the book showed. Yeah, they didn't multiply by 100. They just did the full-on decimal division. But it's basically the same thing. So when we divide, it looks to me like we get 32 goes into there 7 times. And we get 22. Okay. This is a good spot where I could make a mistake and someone might give me a call or email me and say, I found a mistake. This would be it. Okay. However, I think I got it. There we go. And so we get 76. N equals 76. And we go ahead and box that. Try the next few on your own and see how you do. All right. So pause and do these two. What decimal part of 42 is 26.04? So I would say n times 42 equals 26.04. So we're going to divide both sides by 42. And when I do that, I'm going to have to go off to the side, and that's okay. And we're going to get a decimal for our answer. And so what I get here is 0.62. So n equals 0.62. And the next one, 0.42 times 86 equal n. So that's just a straight up multiplication problem. And if you were to do that off to the side, like I said, I'm not asking you to do anything I'm not willing to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do the multiplication problem because I've promised that in the past. So here I am going to go ahead and do it so that you see that it's okay to do old school math. Sometimes you don't have the tools you need. Not often. Usually people have phones now, but okay. 1, 2, it's good to remember the rules of decimals. I got 3, 6, 1, 2, but I got 2 decimals up here, 2 digits behind a decimal number, so I got to have 2 behind a decimal here. So we get n equals 36.12. All right, the rest is practice, so go ahead, turn this off, pause me, come back and check your work. If you get stuck, please give me a call, email, text. It's all good. All right, 5 times the sum of 3 times a number and 5. So I'm going to say 5 times the sum of 3 times a number and negative 5. And the next one, we're going to go with the product of 3 and the sum of a number and negative. So we're going to look like that. The sum of 5 times a number and 13. So that's just 3 times the sum. Yes, this one's a mouthful. 3 times the sum of the opposite of a number and negative 7. So 3 times, and then I'm going to look at it this way. The sum of opposite of a number and negative 7. So it's going to look like this. Here we go. Now these are totally different. We're going to go and translate them into an equation and solve. So 0.16 times n equals 1024. Now if we were to multiply everybody by 100, it would look like this. 16n equals 1024. And that's totally legal. So when we divide both sides by 16, I'm going to do it off to the side. I'm not scared. Okay, and then we get all right, 64. So n equals 64. What decimal part of 80 is 60? So we would do 80n, or n times 80 equals 60. N equals, oh, sorry, divide both sides by 80. So let me get that out of here. So we've got n equals 60 over 80. Well, that's the same as 6/8, which is the same as 3/4, isn't it? Well, we could do 3 divided by 4, but we know, because we need to answer as a decimal. So 3/4 is what happened when I divided, which can be, because we remember that 3/4 is 0.75, so that's nice. All right, 0.48 times 8 equals n. So I go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 1, 2. So we get n equals 3.84. And there we go. And I'm going to end it there. You have just hit lesson 30 out of 120 lessons, which, when you think about it, is 1/4 of the way through the book. Good job.